Hey, welcome back to Go Solely. My name's Sophia and today we're going to be making this drawstring duffel bag yoga bag. Why is it a duffel bag? Because it has these awesome little straps which help you carry this bag any which way that you want, and then it also has a really nice handle at the bottom so you can slip your mat in and out very easily. And then of course the drawstring part, tie a little bow at the top, and it's like a present to yourself every time you go to your yoga practice. Let's get started. Everything you need to make this pattern is listed right here, so pause the video, cut out your pieces, and meet me back here. And if you're looking for a very cheap fabric option, check out your local thrift store for a curtain. They're the perfect size. To get started, you're going to take each of your rectangular pieces, fold them in half, and then fold them into the center and press. I don't know why, but I think this is called a hot dog fold. Either way, that's what we're doing here. So again, here's another piece. We're folding it in half, pressing, and we're really just getting a lot of our ironing done right away. So we're giving everything a really good press before the next step, which is sewing. And that way, when it comes to sewing, everything is ready to go, and you don't have to jump back and forth between your sewing and your ironing board. The last thing to iron are those little rectangles that will go over your strap ends. They're very aesthetic, so if you want to make them a little bit larger, you totally can. It's really up to you. Our next step is to sew down the side of each of these rectangles. And it doesn't matter which side you start with because we're going to sew down both sides. So here's my handle end, and I'm just going to sew down the other side of it as well. And the same goes for the duffel bag straps. So this was part of the reason why this yoga bag's a little different than others. I chose to add 2 straps versus 1. I don't know. As a backpack kid, I just love the idea of having 2 straps, keeping everything nice and in balance, and that's what yoga's all about, right? Let me know what you think. Am I crazy? I think it's kind of fun. And at the end of the day, you're making your own yoga bag, so you can do whatever you want, as long as it helps you get into your practice. Or maybe you're making this for somebody else. That's really cool too. With the main fabric, measure out 8.5 inches from the bottom, and then measure up 4 inches, making a small marking. Take your strap and lay it on the outside of that marking and pin in place. And when you're satisfied with that, run your strap to the other side and just get it ready to pin in place, and check at this point if there are any weird twists in your handle. Then measure 8.5 inches out from the edge of your previous strap, mark a point, and then mark another point 4 inches down, the same way you did with the previous strap. Pin your handle on the other side of these markings, and then you're going to repeat this on the other side. Once you have your straps pinned, you're going to sew a small line at the bottom to secure them in place, and repeat that all the way around so you have all 4 sides of the straps sewn down. And while you're at it, sew down the edge of your handle on top of your main circle piece on both sides. Okay, now that everything is tacked into place, take your patches and cover the bottoms of your straps, lining up the folded bottom edge with the edge of the strap. This will make sure that everything stays even all the way around. And the next step is to sew it in place. We're going to be sewing this interesting shape, which is really 2 different squares and an X through the middle. I'm going to show you how I do that right now, but just know if you have to sew over the same side twice, as long as you're using a thread that matches your fabric, no one's really going to notice, and all it does is reinforce the strength of your patch. As you can see here, I'm just going through and I'm making my first square on the inside. cutting off a little thread there so it doesn't get caught. Pivoting, going all the way down to the very edge. And then I'm sewing my way around through the middle and around the perimeter. And don't forget to backstitch when you're done. Here's what it should look like in the end. When you're done sewing all 4 patches, take your main fabric, place the handles in the center, fold it in half, and then sew down the long side. Repeat this for the lining fabric, but leave a space about a hand's width wide somewhere along the lining fabric where you can then sew around on each side, leaving that space free. This is going to help you turn the bag right side out once everything is sewn together. This is my lining fabric, and as you can see, I'm sewing down to that point, backstitching, and then I'm going to sew down starting at that next point. So I keep that one pocket free, but I'm sewing down everything else. You don't really have to worry about cleaning up the raw edges here because it's going to be on the inside of the bag. Alright, now we're going to take our handle on our main fabric and we're going to find the seam on the bottom of our main fabric and match it to the top center of that circle. From there, you're going to pin around evenly. It kind of helps to start from the center, pin a few places to the right, pin a few places to the left. In this case, I pinned equidistant around 4 points on the circle and then slowly started to repin my way around. Each time I went around, I gave myself a little bit more fabric on the circle piece, but really you want to maximize as much of that circle as you can because it'll give you more space for your mat. So don't be afraid to give yourself a little bit of space, a little bit of room as you see here with the fabric, but also consider that you really want to save as much of that circle as you can. It takes some time, but once you're done, it is going to look great and you can start sewing your way around, and you'll do this for the main fabric and also for the lining. And as you can see, the more pins the better in this case. You really just want to be patient with it. Ease the fabric around when you need to, and just take it slow. If this is your first time sewing a circle like this, I would highly recommend using a base stitch. Try it out, see what it looks like, and then if you have it right, sew again around with a smaller stitch to secure it in place. Once you have your circle sewn, you're going to trim around the edges to create a nice clean finish, and then zigzag around that section to secure it in place. Not only does this help prevent fraying, but it adds a little bit more structure to your yoga bag. Alright, you did it! The hard part's over. So the next step is to run your hand into the main fabric, hold onto that handle, and pull your piece right side out. Take your main fabric and fit it into the sleeve of your lining fabric. You're matching right sides together. And now you're going to sew all the way around the top. When you're done with that, find the opening in your lining and pull everything out, and then pull your lining right side out as well and stuff it into your main fabric. This is a good time to sew that space closed, but only after you turn everything right side out again. And when you're done with that, sew around the opening with a top stitch. Once you've done that, mark 1.5 inches from that top stitch and sew around again, making sure to backstitch quite a bit forwards and backwards when you go over the seam. Then mark 1 inch from that line and sew around again. And once again, backstitch quite a bit over that seam. This is what makes our drawstring channel. To open the channel, take your seam ripper and start to seam rip through that space between the 2 rows that you sewed. Hand sew down the opening on each side to tack it into place. Last but not least, we have our drawstring. So for this section, I actually am using my hair straightener to just iron over the last little bits. I'm turning in the ends about 1/4 of an inch, just making sure they're really flush, folding them in, and then grabbing that hair straightener and giving it a good press. You can also finger press it into place. This just gives it a little extra oomph so it stays nice and crisp when you sew it down. Repeat it to the other side and then sew down one of the sides. You could technically do the other side too, but because this is such a thin channel, I think one side is just enough to get your drawstring done. And yes, it's a long drawstring, so it takes a minute to reach the end. We're almost there. The last step is to take a safety pin and poke it through the end of our drawstring and then maneuver it through that channel that we sewed earlier until it gets through to the other side. When it does get to the other side, pull that part through until it matches the length of the other side of the drawstring, and then you're ready to test it out with your yoga mat. Alright, we're done sewing and now it's time to head on to yoga practice. So to close your drawstring, the easiest way to do it is hold your fingers in a loop, pull through, and then tie a nice little bow, and you are ready to go. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope we can create together in the next video. Let me know what part of this project was your favorite and what was the most challenging, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you.